Hey there, e-commerce enthusiasts. Let me tell you about a game changer in shipping, ShipStation. It's the ultimate platform for simplifying your shipping process. With ShipStation, you can easily import, manage, and ship your orders in no time. It integrates seamlessly with your favorite e-commerce platforms and carriers, ensuring a smooth workflow. Gain valuable insights with their powerful analytics and reporting tools. Say goodbye to shipping headaches. Visit foxcitiesmm.com/ship and level up your shipping game today.
You're listening to Fox Cities Murder and Mayhem, your bi-weekly dose of true crime history in a small rural community of Wisconsin.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fox Cities Murder and Mayhem. I'm Eric.
I'm Gavin.
And Gavin, we are back again.
Yes.
Where are we traveling to today?
Wow. Yeah. We're going to do a little bit of jumping around, a couple of different places. You'll see in a moment, but I wanted to offer an update before we jump in.
Ooh.
So I get this newspaper called the Neenah News.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah. And they had an article. The article is DNA Technology Cracks 1960s Cold Case.
Oh, so does this mean that they just cracked something that we did a story about?
That's correct.
Wow.
So I saw it first in the Neenah News, and I tried to find it at other places, and now I've seen it on like two other websites. But I think Neenah News might have actually
broke the story. Good job.
Yeah. So I don't know if anybody remembers, but we did cover this. There was a case, I want to say 1963. It's a man named Wayne Pratt who was stabbed 53 times
at a gas
station
okay.
just outside of Neenah.
Okay, yeah, I recall this story. This was a pretty early story, if I remember it right.
We probably did it fairly early on, and it was unsolved. I would have guessed it would have never been solved, but apparently the police had some kind of a DNA sample, which that in itself amazes me, because this being from the 1960s, the fact that they actually had something they could DNA test, and it wasn't like
tainted,
tainted all to hell, because through no fault of their own, like people in the 60s didn't know, but apparently they sent it in a couple of years ago. It came back with nothing. The lab they sent it to retested it as their equipment got better, and it hit on a person. The person, they haven't released the name yet, but the person died a year and a half ago. So there's not going to be anything happening with the case, but it sounds like they're going to consider it closed, because this is somebody they had suspected for a long time, could never bring them to trial. But with the DNA, it's almost a sure thing they were the person.
Wow. So hopefully we'll have an update, because I assume they will someday release this name, right?
The police right now are saying they want to tell more information to both the family of the victim and the family of the suspect. They don't want to drop like the bombshell to the news being like, this guy's a murderer. And then his kids are like, what the hell? So there will be an update. There'll probably be an update in the next week, which by the time people hear this will already have happened. So if you're interested, Google Wayne Pratt, you'll probably find this answer. We might do an update on here. We'll see. It depends what comes out of it. It could be really unexciting, or it could be a really big change in the whole story. So We'll see what happens.
But you do not know who this person is. You said that Dave thought this person was possibly the person for a long time.
I don't think they were ever publicly named the person.
Okay. So we have no idea who that could be.
No, I don't have an idea.
Okay.
I mean, I could see everybody who died a year and a half ago, but it's nobody that I can figure out based on what little they've let out so far.
And I can't remember if we had because the way my direction I was going with that question was like, did we mention this person on the podcast?
I don't think so.
But I don't recall. But I mean, this podcast, I feel like this was one of the first.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if,
Well, I can't remember either, but I don't think so. I didn't go back and check, but my understanding, based on not checking my notes, was more or less his wife found him like that. So there wasn't like a lot of the police somehow through their detection skills found some people, but immediately there were no suspects. Right. He was alone in a gas station. Mm-hmm. So I don't think there was ever really publicly named suspects.
Well, that is really cool that, they were able to,
yeah, because that's 61 years.
Yeah, so
that should have never been solved, but they did it.
Good job on the police department because, for them to even take the time to go back and retest, even if they knew they had something to retest it, I give them props for that because there's probably not a whole lot of incentive for them to do that. You know what I mean?
Because, not at this point.
Because even the family is like, they're never going to find it, so they're not even pushing anything. So
yeah, so hey, good job there. Yeah, we'll see what comes out, but that was a real surprise when I saw that. I was like, wow, okay. So I want to jump to today's episode. Today's episode is not in any one specific place. I have in my hands a handful of news stories, and I'm going to be reading snippets of the news stories.
Okay. Do they have a common theme that
they have a common theme?
Is that secret right now? It will be revealed as the episode moves along.
I can tell you the common theme because it's going to be, you're going to figure it out in the first sentence. Okay. So these are all stories related to carbolic acid.
Okay.
And carbolic acid is something that is usually like a cleaning agent. It like burns and foams and cleans things. Apparently it's something that people, probably not anymore, but people who used to like raise horses would use for cleaning the hooves and stuff.
Okay.
So that is our theme today.
Okay, so this is no longer used for those purposes?
I don't know. You never really hear about carbolic acid anymore, so I don't know if maybe they just like don't call it that, or there's like brand names. I'm not sure. I tried to look it up, and it wasn't super helpful information I could find. It seems like it's an outdated thing.
Okay, maybe this will become much clearer once you go into the story. So let's do that.
Yeah, and maybe I'll get like a nasty email being like, "What, you don't know what carbolic is? We use it all the time." But maybe you do. I don't know, but it seems to me like this is a thing that kind of faded away, but maybe they just changed the name of it. So this is August 22nd, 1902. It's called, headline is Painful Means of Suicide. Have you ever noticed how many suicides use carbolic acid? Asked a druggist the other day. Without having any actual data on the subject, I should say that fully 1/3, perhaps a half, use that means of exit. It is something I could never understand because there are so many more comfortable ways of doing it. There could not possibly be a more agonizing death than carbolic acid poisoning produces. The corrosive fluid burns the mouth, tongue, and throat, then passes into the stomach and must feel like so much hot lead. So this was just a general article that appeared. No names were in it. But in 1902, apparently, this guy believes that between 1/3 and 1/2 of people who kill themselves are using carbolic acid to do it.
Wow.
Which, I don't know, no idea if those numbers are accurate, but it seems like a really bad idea. All right. We've got January 1905. Miss Anna Waters of Fond du Lac, who's 19 years old, died as a result of drinking 6 ounces of chloroform and also a quantity of carbolic acid. After taking the poison, she screamed and her mother ran to her room. Doctors were called, but they couldn't save her life. The young woman was handsome and accomplished and had recently inherited a small fortune from the estate of her aunt. But they could not save her. December 1909, drinks deadly acid. Discouraged by illness and by loss of employment, Henry Schindel committed suicide in Oshkosh by drinking carbolic acid. He purchased the poison upon going home, asked his wife to go to a grocery store half a block away as an excuse to get her out of the house. He then took off his shoes, laid down on the bed, and drank the acid. His little 2-year-old daughter saw him in agony and, running to meet her mother, said, "Papa took some nasty stuff." A doctor was summoned, but efforts to restore him were unavailing. His mouth and throat were badly burned. He was 26 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. September 1910, Appleton. Carbolic acid in coffee might have proven fatal to Daniel Wing, night hostler for the Smith Livery and Transfer Company. I don't know what a hostler is, but when Wing started to eat his midnight lunch, he took a sip of coffee and then spit it out, as the carbolic acid was so strong it burned his mouth. It was found a large bottle of acid used about the horses was missing, and the police are looking for a discharged employee of the barn who is suspected of having placed half a pint of acid in the bucket of coffee.
So this one is not a suicide. This is
not
a murder.
suicide. Almost. He got out okay. He spit it out, but that was somebody tried to make him drink cleaning solution there. July 1912. Frank Rowans, who served a number of years as a teamster of the fire department, committed suicide via the carbolic acid route sometime during the afternoon on the 4th of July, 1912. He's last seen on the north side of Kaukauna, where he had been assisting in operating a cane rack on Wisconsin Avenue, and shortly after 8 o'clock in the evening, his dead body was found in bed at home by his wife, who returned at that time from the day's celebration. It is not known how long he may have been dead, but at any rate, he took his own life sometime between 2 and 8 in the evening, having repaired to his home, which is on the lower end of Wisconsin Avenue. Rowlands was thrown from his rig while driving the fire department team about a year ago and was severely injured. This led to him being despondent and ultimately his suicide. March 1915. Marvin Harvey dies. Railroad man passes away Friday evening. Marvin Harvey, 63 years old, died at his home on 9th Street on the south side of Kaukauna as the result of drinking carbolic acid.
What is with this?
Mr. Harvey retired upon reaching his home Friday night, and soon afterwards, hearing peculiar noises and rushing into the bedroom, Mrs. Harvey found the half-emptied bottle of acid on the floor beside the bed. A physician was hastily summoned, but death took place before his arrival. The prior evening, Mr. Harvey had went down to the Kaukauna Drug Company store, asked for carbolic acid, saying that he wanted to use it to exterminate cockroaches. Otto Look told him that he must be mistaken, as he had never heard of carbolic acid being used for such a purpose. Mr. Harvey said he would go and ask his wife whether it was the acid or something else that was to be used, and left the store. About half an hour later, he returned to the drugstore and declared, "Yep, it's carbolic acid that I want to use to kill the cockroaches." Then the druggist sold him a 2-ounce bottle of the poison.
So this is, because you said this is like for cleaning horses' hooves and stuff?
Yeah, it's just a cleanser.
But it's being sold at drugstores? So it must be a pretty vicious cleanser.
Yeah.
If they require a drugstore to sell it.
Oh, yeah. It's a strong one. Here's another version of the same story. It's a different article, but the same story, so let's skip that. December 1921. Now, this appeared in the Kaukauna newspaper. I don't know if this really happened, but it's some morbid humor here. Okay?
What makes you think it might not have happened? Because you can't find it anywhere else?
Because there's no names in it.
Okay.
So I don't know if this happened and they just didn't put any names, or if this is like the newspaper editor's really bad joke.
Okay.
December 1921. A hardware store adjoined to the corner drugstore, just a short distance from his place of business. Not saying whose place of business, just says his. His wife phoned him to bring home some carbolic acid, and he started out to make the purchase. His mind was on a big business deal, which he was about to close, and he unconsciously walked into the wrong store. "Give me a dime's worth of carbolic acid," he said to the man behind the counter, before he had become aware of his surroundings. "Well, we're out of carbolic acid," said the ambitious and dutiful clerk, "but we have a nice line of ropes, razors, revolvers, and cartridges."
What?
See, I don't know if this is really happening or this is some really dark joke. But yeah. But yeah, he's going to the drugstore to get carbolic acid, accidentally walked to the hardware store, asked for it, and because they don't have carbolic acid at the hardware store, they offer him ropes, razors, and revolvers. Because why else would you use carbolic acid? Sure, right? February 6, 1922, we're in Appleton. Appleton police were without definite clues, which would lead to the identification of a man who died at the police station after having swallowed a solution of carbolic acid. About 8:15, a man reported to the police that a man was sitting on the sidewalk on Appleton Street just north of Harris Street, apparently ill or suffering from the cold as he was shaking convulsively. An officer hurried to the spot with the police automobile. In the meantime, Harry Ressman, an Appleton Street clothing store owner, telephoned the station that a man, writhing as though in great pain, was on the steps in front of his store. When the officer reached the place, he found the man unconscious, lying face down on the sidewalk in front of Ressman's store. The officer hurried him to the station, where he died 10 minutes later without regaining consciousness. Nobody knew who he was. But he did leave a note. This is my last writing. To the little girls and boys, beware and keep your steps. Be good to your father and mother. The way of the transgressor is hard. You cannot imagine how I feel when I am going to take my own life. From one who has lived a life from a rich man to a pauper, goodbye. And then there's like just things that are like right into the press that are like, he's a well-dressed guy, he's about this old, but we don't know who he is. So they ended up taking him to the funeral home, hoping that somebody would show up and claim him.
Really?
And finally, March 1930.
So we started in 1901 and we're all the way up to 1930 and you're still finding these stories.
Yep.
Jesus.
Drinking most of the contents of a bottle of carbolic acid, Edward Miller, age 28, took his own life Saturday evening at the home of his mother, Mrs. Charles Miller, in Shiocton. He was dead before a physician reached the home. Miller had been melancholy most of the day, friends of his reported. Late in the afternoon, he had called on several neighbors, shaking hands with all of them and bidding them goodbye. This will be the last time you will ever see me, he told several of his acquaintances. Nobody took his remarks seriously, however, as he had made similar threats on several occasions recently. He ate supper at the John Sharp home in Shiocton, then went to the Earl Fraser home for a few minutes. Telling his mother that he had injured himself slightly, he asked her if she had any carbolic acid in the house. Considering his question natural under the circumstances, she found the bottle for him. Apparently, it can be used to treat wounds as well. There's a lot of stuff you can do with this, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
As he took the bottle from her, he bid his mother goodbye, drank deeply of the poison, ran into a bedroom, and flung himself on the bed. A physician was summoned, but the man was pronounced dead as soon as the physician arrived. So,
I kind of hope that they did get rid of this because this sounds like a terrible, terrible thing.
well, this is the thing here. Like, let me be very, very clear with how I say this. I am not condoning suicide. And I am not telling anybody to do it. So please don't. I'm saying I'm not responsible at all. But if you do, which you shouldn't, but if you do, please don't do this. Please.
And I mean, I guess in a hindsight of it all, when you look at it, we probably have tons of things in our house, cleaning solutions and stuff, that if you just go drink it, you're going to die. I mean, so.
But what a terrible idea.
And based on the
I mean, I'm not entirely clear exactly how this stuff works, but the closest thing I can picture is basically drain cleaner.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I could definitely see that.
And like, I'm not going to drink that. Like, I'm just not. I don't care how bad of a day I'm having. I'm not drinking drain cleaner. So this has to be, these people were really desperate.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's funny because that one article you read where you're not sure if this is like a real story or if it's just supposed to be funny.
Yeah.
I take that as being funny because it's just kind of...
Yeah.
First of all, why would they report it in the news?
Right.
If it was a real story?
Right.
But it's funny because it almost is like people are expecting, like that guy.
Yeah.
The joke there is that, well, you're looking for carbolic acid. You must be trying to kill yourself.
Yeah.
So it must have just been a huge joke at this time that everybody killed themselves using carbolic acid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is just horrifying.
It's so weird to me. This is definitely one of those cases where the newspaper, I don't know if it stopped in the 1930s, but at least if it did, at least the change in reporting came about then, when they wouldn't print things like that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always amazing to me. Anytime somebody dies of anything other than like heart failure or something, they get this write-up and you get these details that really people don't need to know. Like, me reading it back historically, whatever, I'm glad that those details are in there. But I don't think family members really want that in there.
Right, yeah. Like, we're making it a show out of the fact that my brother committed suicide or whatever it might be. It's...
Yeah, and now, today, if somebody commits suicide under any means, like, you don't write that in the paper. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, under some circumstances you might, because it might have to be explained. But most of the time you would not say that.
Mm-hmm. And you're going to say it in an overly, like, cautious way.
Yeah.
Wording it. Whereas right now they're literally just making it a good story in a way.
Yeah. But, so I wanted to give these articles here. None of these are really a story in themselves. So I wanted to kind of put them together. And also they lead into what our next episode will be. So this episode is like the lead in to next time.
So the next story, I'm assuming, is going to have something to do with carbolic acid.
Yes,
then.
it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
So is it because of the big story that we're doing next time that you discovered all these little incidents?
I don't remember exactly the order it came out. This came about from a conversation with my sister.
Okay.
And I believe what happened is she had found an article about carbolic acid. And I had heard of it before. Like, this wasn't completely new to me. It is something that you run into in the paper every so often in the old papers. But she had brought it up, and she had found the story that we're going to be doing next time. And then I was like, well, this seems like a good excuse to, like, kind of just be like, hey, what happens if I just look for carbolic acid in this? I never specifically looked that up. I'm always looking up names or businesses or whatever. And there's a list.
Were you shocked? Were you shocked by the amount of people that had used it as a suicide tool?
I don't know if I was shocked, but it's definitely, there's no shortage. Let me say that. Like, what I read here is not every article. Like, you can find a lot.
Did you go as far as to see if this was a big thing nationwide?
Oh, yeah. It totally was.
It was? Okay.
Yeah. No. This isn't like a Fox Cities thing. This is, people were, like, there would even be reports in, not so much in the Kaukauna papers, but like in the Appleton papers, they'd have like their national section, and they'd have snippets of people in, Cleveland or Texas or whatever that did the same thing. So no, this was just something people did.
God, the weird thing is because like the one doctor said, like, I can't imagine a worse way to kill yourself.
Well, that's the thing,
and it's like,
that's the thing. The first article, already apparently it's a common thing before the rest of the articles even happen. But yeah, why?
And why do you popularize something that's so horrible? It sounds like this basically burns your insides.
Like, again, don't do this. I want to be very clear. I don't want any kind of legal repercussions here. But, like, even going to the drugstore to get it, I have to imagine there's other things these people could have bought from the drugstore.
That would have been more peaceful, but, wow.
Yeah. So, So if people hadn't been familiar with, and I imagine most people, this is probably new to them. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing that people did, and it sounds terrible. But apparently it's also pretty quick acting, because it seems like by the time the doctor arrived, they were pretty much done. So I guess that's a good use. I guess, I don't know. But doesn't sound like pleasant at all.
Yeah, because in your stories we had, was it just the one guy that spit it out that survived?
The guy who tasted it in his coffee and spit it.
So out of how many stories, one person was able to beat it, right?
Yeah. And again, like, this isn't like every story, but I didn't see a story where somebody tried to use it and then, like, failed.
So I guess maybe that was why it was so popular, because if you wanted it done, it was going to get it done.
Yeah. So there wasn't like somebody who then had to spend the rest of their life with, like, their job burnt off or something. Mm-hmm. So that probably has happened, but I didn't see stories like that. It seems like it was pretty much, it worked. Yeah.
So, like we said, though, don't do that.
Don't do that. I don't know how to be any more clear about that. Like, covering it as a historical thing that happened. Do not in any way be inspired by this episode.
Hopefully we have said over and over again on this podcast how dumb of an idea we think this is, so nobody thinks this is a good idea or something they should try.
Yeah.
So do you want to give a little snippet of what the preview for the next episode is going to be, or do you want to kind of just leave it out there?
I really want to keep as little said as possible. I will say it involves carbolic acid, and it is in Door County. Okay. I will say that, but I do not want to say more than that, because if I say any more, I think I'll give away the really nasty part of the story.
Gotcha.
Like, for as bad as some of this sounded, I guarantee you the next episode is worse.
So now, too, if I remember correctly, previously we had done an episode, and I don't remember if it was a Mafia or Fox Cities Murder, Mayhem episode, but remember that your sister had found the story and written a story. Is this written by your sister, or is she just providing...
The one coming up?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. This is just her giving you the idea, basically.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Well, then I think we probably should wrap this one up, because we should just leave it for the next episode.
Yeah, this was just kind of a transition episode to get us ready for next time. So nothing really super thorough, but getting people pumped.
Yeah,
people pumped. Yeah, that, I guess maybe pumped isn't the right word. I don't know. It's so weird when you talk about murder and death to say things like getting pumped, but if these are the kind of stories you enjoy, I think you're really going to like the next story. It's awful.
And I think we should close the podcast out with just one more time of, if you listen to this podcast and you think the idea of drinking carbolic acid is a good idea, please seek help.
Oh, yes.
Call somebody.
That's a good point.
Talk to somebody.
That's a good point. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yes. That didn't even occur to me. Shame on me. But yes, there are, of course, hotlines and other places you can go if you are feeling down, think that life is not great. There's ways. There's ways that you can get through it. So.
Yes, and carbolic acid is not
one of them. Yeah.
So, all right, with that, we'll wrap this episode up. We'll be back for part 2 of this, and I guess we can call it part 2, or
it's not really part 2, but it's
continuation.
Yeah.
Continuation. So we'll be back with that in 2 weeks, and we want to thank everybody for tuning into this podcast. We'll see y'all in the next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to Fox Cities Murder and Mayhem. Join us in 2 weeks for another exciting episode of Murder and Mayhem.